For spine-chilling true stories revealed, unexplained horrors that haunted lives for years, in the perfectly manicured suburb of Maplewood, a real-life nightmare brewed beneath the surface of picket fences and cheerful waving neighbors. Sarah, a 32-year-old single mom, could almost pretend life was normal until everything fell apart. The tinkle of laughter that had filled the air was replaced by an unsettling silence. Families with young children had simply vanished overnight, no trucks, no farewells, just the echo of emptiness where community used to thrive. The atmosphere thickened with an unseen dread, whispering truths better left unspoken. One evening, while pulling weeds in her garden, a chill swept her spine. A shadow flitted past her window, it paused, then vanished. Heart racing, she glanced around the cul-de-sac where laughter once rang. An oppressive quiet hung in the air, and Sarah caught sight of strange, dark forms lurking near her house as twilight settled. She tried to shake off the creeping fear, but dread clung to her like a shadow. The next morning, Ethan, her spirited 6-year-old, came bounding into the kitchen, eyes wide with excitement. "Mommy! I made a new friend." He jumped up and down, but something about his joy sent a shiver down her spine. "Who was this friend?" Ethan spoke animatedly about Chip, a boy who only played with him at 3 a.m., beckoning him to join under the moonlight. Panic rose in Sarah as frantic memories of the vanished families flooded her mind. The alarming connection made her feel sick. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As nightfall draped over Maplewood, shadows deepened. Sarah couldn't ignore the swirling unease anymore. She paced the living room, listening to Ethan chatter about this Chip who told him stories under the stars, tales of worlds no mother would ever want her child to know. The more she pressed for details, the more Ethan's voice trembled, his playful mask slipping. "Mommy, he says we can't tell you. He gets mad when we do." Sarah's dread grew thicker, twisting her stomach into knots. Why wouldn't the neighbors talk? Every time she mentioned the recent disappearances, the tight-lipped residents exchanged wary glances, their unspoken secrets clawing at Sarah's sanity. That night, checking the backyard, she gasped at the sight of strange symbols crudely painted on her garage, a chilling reminder of tales woven into local folklore, stories of child stealers lurking just outside the town's veil of normality. Her heart thundered as she recalled the lingering whispers about offerings made to appease the dark forces guarding Maplewood. Ethan's friend wasn't a benign spirit, he was a predator wearing the guise of innocence. As the clock ticked ominously toward 3 a.m. again, the shadows outside began to swirl and pulse, and Sarah stood at her front door, grasping the handle tightly. Fear surged as Ethan's laughter floated through the night, a playful call echoing into the darkness. What lay beyond? With determination, Sarah took a deep breath, balancing between dread and resolve. She needed to find out before it was too late. Would she brave the ominous unknown, or would she lose her son to the very evil buried within the heart of Maplewood? The door creaked as Sarah stepped outside, the cool night air wrapping around her like a living entity. Shadows darted in the corners of her vision, but she focused solely on the giggling sound coming from the backyard, a sound that dripped with carefree innocence. Or was it malice? "Ethan," she called softly, her voice trembling as it sliced through the stillness. The laughter stopped. An impenetrable silence settled, thick and suffocating, pressing against her like a vice. She felt an icy bead of sweat trickle down her back. "Chip," she whispered, invoking the name that had twisted her heart in knots. The air felt electric, almost charged with anticipation. Just then, a figure emerged from the darkness, small, wraith-like. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat as the outline became clearer. "Mommy! Look, it's Chip!" Ethan squealed, dashing past her to embrace the shadowy figure. Panic twisted into a nauseating coil deep within her. She had to act fast. "Ethan, sweetheart, come here," Sarah commanded, her voice sharper now, laced with desperation. But he didn't budge, transfixed by the boy with the hollow eyes and a smile that stretched just a bit too wide. "Chip is really fun, Mommy. He tells me stories about the star people," Ethan exclaimed, his eyes aglow with an unearthly light. Sarah's heart raced, slamming against her ribcage. "What stories, Ethan? What does he say?" Every word felt like a lead weight. Chip, the thing lurking in the shadows, was pulling her son into a web she couldn't access. The thought made her stomach churn. Not the scary ones. The fun ones. "And he says he wants to play forever." Ethan's voice trailed off, innocence colliding with an unsettling sense of reality. Sarah's instinct screamed danger. "Let us go back inside, honey." She moved closer, but Chip stepped forward, dark and unfathomable, blocking her path. "Stay with us," he said, the words slithering out like smoke. The air grew heavy, and Sarah felt a pull, an ancient tug beneath her skin that beckoned her to join them, to step closer into the abyss. "No. Ethan, now." She lunged, grabbing his arm and pulling him towards the house. His laughter turned to a whimper as he fought against her grip. "I want to stay. I want to play." His pleas pierced Sarah's heart. The shadows writhed around them, a looming horror stretching overhead like nightmarish tendrils reaching for its prey. "No!" she screamed, feeling an overwhelming surge of maternal instinct. With every ounce of willpower, she yanked Ethan away from Chip, racing back inside, slamming the door shut behind them. The hollow laughter seeped through the walls, echoing their failure. Heart pounding, she dropped to her knees, holding Ethan tight to her chest, feeling his small, terrified heartbeat against her. "What was that, Mommy? Why did you pull me away?" His eyes shimmered with unshed tears, confusion wrestling with fear. "Baby, I don't know. We can't talk to Chip anymore. You understand?" Ethan nodded, his small hand gripping hers. But the laughter continued outside, now more insistent, echoing through the darkness, clawing at the edges of their sanity. Then, a knock sounded on the front door. Sarah's heart stopped. It wasn't a gentle knock. It was heavy, demanding, echoing with the urgency of something that knew they were inside. "Ethan, stay behind me," she whispered, terror pooling in her stomach. But when she glanced at him, he was looking past her, his face going pale as the laughter faded into a low, rumbling growl. "Chip wants to come in, Mommy." With a shaky breath, Sarah turned to the door, knowing that whatever was beyond held her son's fate. Did she dare open it, or was there truth in the idea that some doors should remain forever closed? She lifted her trembling hand, poised to turn the knob. Would she uncover the sinister force that had invaded their lives, or would she unleash something far worse? The answer lay within the shadows, waiting. The knock on the door grew louder, more insistent, a chaotic drum that resonated through the small house. It was as if the very wood craved the warmth of their fear. Sarah's heart raced, terror clawed at her throat. Ethan's eyes mirrored her horror, wide and unblinking. "Stay back, Ethan," she whispered, trying to sound stronger than she felt. The relentless sound echoed in the air, a dull thud with an otherworldly rhythm that sent shivers down her spine. She could almost hear a voice beneath it, low and guttural, vibrating with malice. "Let me in." Her hand lingered near the knob, fingers frozen, weighing the decision like a dark pact with the monster outside. Every fiber of her being screamed at her to flee, to find safety within the familiar walls of her home. But what lay beyond the threshold? Was it truly Chip, that twisted shadow, or something even worse? "Mommy?" Ethan's tiny voice broke through her reverie, dragging her back to the suffocating present. "What do we do?" The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. Sarah couldn't look away from her son, his innocent face marred with worry. She had always promised to keep him safe. How could she do that now? Just stay behind me. We have to be brave." The words felt empty even as she spoke them, echoing the relentless ding of despair in her chest. Outside, the laughter returned, twisted and sharp, a cacophony of mocking joy that pierced through her resolve. "We just want to play." The voice carried an unsettling familiarity. It was Chip, but not the Chip who had laughed with Ethan. This was a creature made of darkness, a specter shaped by her worst fears. As she stood there, adrenaline surging, uncertainty gnawed at her. What if the stories Chip had spun weren't just tales of delight? What if they masked a deeper, darker truth? The stories of the Star People, there had to be a hidden warning in there, something chilling beneath the surface, fear amplified, rallying around her. It hissed in her ears, urging her not to open the door. "I want to see Chip, Mommy." Ethan's outburst shocked her back to the reality of her decision. His bright eyes, filled with a longing that made her stomach twist, revealed a stark truth: he was drawn to whatever waited beyond. "No!" she shouted, the force of her voice startling Ethan into silence. "We can't see him. We can't trust him." Rising desperation bubbled in her throat, threatening to spill over. "But he is my friend." Ethan's voice quivered, a threadbare reminder of innocence fighting against a tempo of dark undercurrents. "Ethan. Chip isn't who you think he is." The very air around them seemed to tremble in unison with her words. The knocking paused for a heartbeat, a hesitant lull pregnant with anticipation. "Mommy, do you remember the games we used to play?" Ethan asked, his voice small, uncertain, a fearful echo of the distant laughter outside. "Please, just listen to me." A collective hush descended then, broken only by the creaking of the house settling around them. Sarah turned again, the knob now a beacon of fear pulling her toward it. She felt the decision solidify in her bones. Whatever lay on the other side of that door couldn't be worse than what she imagined waiting just out of reach. She took one again trembling breath and prepared to twist the knob when suddenly the growl erupted again, louder, angrier. It vibrated through her body, rattling her core. "Let me in." The force behind that voice shattered her remaining composure. She joined Ethan on the floor, their trembling bodies huddled at the foot of the door. Panic tightened around them, thickening the air like a fog of dread, and then, as if sensing their desperation, the groaning of the door filled the room. The knob twisted, slowly, deliberately, with a jolt. Sarah's hand flew to Ethan's mouth, desperate to silence the fear spilling over from her throat. The door began to open. What lay beyond? Was salvation waiting for them, or was there something darker, a reality they would never escape? The laughter loomed in the shadows, and she knew the answer would change everything. The door creaked as it inched open, an ominous groan that echoed in the stillness of their home. Shadows spilled into the dim light, twisting into grotesque forms that danced along the walls. Sarah held her breath, eyes locked on the gaping maw of the entrance, her heartbeat pounding like a war drum. "Mommy, I can see him," Ethan whispered, his small hand stretching toward the threshold, innocent and trusting in the horrific moment. "No, Ethan. Wait." Her voice cracked as she lunged forward, pulling him away just as the door swung wide. The laughter erupted, louder, a sonic wave that crashed over them, wrapping around their minds like a vice. It was a sound that felt alive, crawling under Sarah's skin, curling around her spine. The figure standing in the doorway was obscured by shadows, parts of it darker than night itself. Its eyes reflected nothing but cold hunger and malice. A familiar outline emerged from the chaos, the slight frame of Chip, but distorted, stretched into something unrecognizable. The boy was all wrong, the grin twisted into a sickening leer, teeth sharp and glistening. "Why don't you let me play?" Chip said, but the voice held no joy, only the promise of horrific games that would bury them both in turmoil. Ethan leaned in, captivated by that sinister charm. "Chip." His voice was tentative, a flicker of hope in the abyss. "Ethan, no." Sarah shouted, yanking him back again. Panic surged, spilling into her limbs like ice. The warmth of the house felt distant, submerged beneath a tide of dread. "Mommy, I want to play." Ethan cried, his innocent face pleading, innocence battling the creeping horror. He turned again to Chip, the allure of friendship weighing heavily against Sarah's fear. Witchcraft, magic, what twisted forces had taken hold of her son? Know what happens in the game if you don't let me in? Chip leaned closer, shadows rippling around him like smoke. No more fun forever. A bone-chilling breeze whipped through the doorway. Sarah felt it scrape against her skin, pulling at her resolve. We're not playing your games, Chip. You've changed. It's not safe, don't you see? The door swung wider, a gaping mouth threatening to swallow their world. The laughter intensified, clawing at her sanity, rising beyond comprehension, enveloping their hearts in ice. Each note was a dagger, puncturing the fragile thread of hope. The darkness thickened, washing over her like ink. Her breath became shallow, panic clawing at her throat. She could almost see the mystery of Chip's transformation unfurling before her. If she opened that door completely, what would spill inside? Mommy, Ethan whimpered, pulling on her arm, his trust unwavering. Her resolve crumbled like dry twigs underfoot. Ethan, listen to me. Desperation turned her voice sharp. The Chip we knew, he is gone. This isn't him anymore. What do you mean? He jerked away, confusion clouding his innocent eyes. The tug-of-war within her heart wrenched deeper, with one last glance at the boy in the doorway, etched with shadows, Sarah steeled herself. She had to protect Ethan, no matter the cost. We have to get out of here. Run to the back now. Together, they bolted away from the door, feet slapping against the hardwood floor. But just as they reached the hallway, the laughter morphed, booming louder, more furious. You can't escape the game. Not now, not ever. The walls trembled, and Sarah's stomach dropped. A crashing sound shattered what little calm remained. Chip's voice twisted into something unrecognizable, a distorted symphony of fear and despair. Mommy! Ethan shrieked, as an icy shadow surged toward them, claws stretching, grasping, desperate to snatch them back. They sprinted, hearts pounding, fear eclipsing their senses. But where could they go? The back door, the only exit, was locked. Mommy! What do we do? Ethan's small voice trembled, tears spilling down his cheeks, fingers fumbling. Sarah wrestled with the lock, panic surging. But all she could hear was the laughter, now mingled with a new sound, a low growl, a promise of horrors yet unseen, the beginning of something neither could fully comprehend. Would they be swallowed by the darkness that sought them? Or could they break free before the last page of their horror story was written? The door rattled as clamoring laughter grew louder, wrapping around them like a shroud. The shadow approached and Sarah felt the end pulling closer. The lock wouldn't budge. Sarah's heart raced, her trembling fingers slipping against the metal as if it were coated in grease. Panic surged inside her, a cold wave crashing through her chest. Ethan, hold tight. She yelled. Desperation clawed at her throat as the laughter morphed into something even more terrifying, a chorus of mocking, bone-chilling cackles that echoed through the hallway. Behind them, the shadows twisted, coiling like living tendrils, creeping closer. Sarah could feel the weight of Chip's presence suffocating her, that twisted semblance of her son's friend, now a predator lying in wait. You can't hide. It taunted, each word dripping with delight. This is just the beginning. She threw herself against the door, shoulder colliding with the wood, but it held fast, unyielding. Mommy, it's coming. Ethan wailed, his small body shaking against her side. His trust, once an anchor, was now a heavy burden as the reality of their situation pressed down on her like a stone. Ethan, I need you to listen. She turned to face him, forcing her voice to stay steady even as fear gnawed at her insides. We're going to have to make a run for it. We have to get to the front of the house and break a window if we can't get out the back. But Chip, he whispered, eyes wide with dread. Chip is not our friend anymore. He is not just a boy. He is something else. The urgency burned in her veins. She grabbed Ethan's hand tightly, inhaling sharply. On the count of 3, we run, okay? Ready? He nodded, tears spilling over as fear flickered in his eyes, but determination flickered behind it, too. "All right. 1, 2, 3. They bolted through the house, racing back toward the front. The laughter surged, spiraling into a cacophony of rage. The shadows monstered behind them, elongating, lunging with claws that scrabbled against the floor. Sarah could hear the air whipping past her, taste the dread thick in her mouth. "Go, go!" she screamed. She hurled herself toward the living room, where the old window beckoned a fragile chance at freedom amidst the chaos, but as they reached the room, a great shadow loomed, blocking the light. Chip was there, standing solidly, but now joined by silhouettes of other children, their faces hidden yet sentient. They swayed together, a macabre dance that mocked their fear. "You can't leave. The game has only just begun," Chip whispered, voice layered with sickening glee. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, tugging on her arm, panic rising in his voice. "What do we do?" The window it had to open. With renewed urgency, Sarah sprinted to it, wrenching it up with all her strength. The smell of rain and grass hit her, a reminder of normalcy, and yet the laughter clawed at her ears. Her heart sank as the window creaked, refusing to fully open. "Help me!" she shouted to Ethan, who scrambled up beside her, trying to push the glass upward. The shadows inched closer, filling the room with a suffocating darkness that threatened to swallow them. Sarah could feel the chill seeping into her skin, freezing the hope that lingered, then crash. The living room shook as a dark figure lunged at them, clawing toward Ethan with a twisted grin. "Ethan! Jump!" Sarah screamed, shoving her son toward the window just as the grotesque laughter erupted anew, slashing through the air like a dagger. The shadows reached for her, wrapping fingers of cold around her waist. Ethan dove through the opening, shrieking as his tiny body tumbled onto the grass below. "No!" Sarah's eyes widened in horror, for the shadows had now become a swirling storm, converging on her. For a moment, she hesitated, torn between the warmth of her son's voice and the pulling darkness around her. As her heart raced, something deep within her screamed to dive after him, to leap into the unknown, even if the dangers lurked below. She took a breath, feeling the warmth of the sun's last rays slicing through the chaos. She made her choice. With one final look at the growing shadows, she hurled herself through the window. The shards of glass glinted like daggers, but she wouldn't let fear claim her. Would they be able to escape, or had they only made the game more interesting? The ground rushed to meet her, and the laughter transformed into a piercing silence that swallowed everything whole. What awaited them outside? Would the curse follow them beyond their home? Impact slammed into Sarah. Grass tangled in her hair as she hit the ground, the cool earth grounding her as the desperate situation rushed back. She bolted upright, eyes darting for Ethan. Mommy?" His tiny voice quavered as he sat on the grass, small frame trembling. She rushed to him, wrapping her arms around him, trying to shield him from the darkness still lurking in the windows of their home. "We need to run," she urged, voice shaking like the leaves in the wind. "Now." Ethan shook his head, tears welled in his eyes. "But what about Chip? The real Chip is gone," she insisted, grasping his shoulders. "There's nothing left but that monster." Fear flowered as realization sunk in. If Chip was there, then his nightmarish friends were too. The silent house loomed behind them, shadows flickering at every window, their whispers just out of earshot but still palpable, weaving through the air like tendrils of smoke. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, pointing. The front porch had become a stage for the sinister performance. Other children appeared, their forms flickering between this world and the shadows, their faces twisted and malformed in a way that felt almost human but terribly wrong. The laughter struck again, a malicious wave, echoing back from the depths of their home, deepening Sarah's dread. "You can't keep running forever," they shouted, taunting. "The game has just begun." Sarah grasped Ethan's hand tighter but hesitated as memories rushed back, the playdates, the laughter, the innocent moments. Their hearts raced. Was this really just a game? She had entrusted that place with her family's happiness, and now it turned against them. "Mommy! They're coming!" Ethan squeaked, eyes wide, rooted in place. She glanced back. The shapes drew closer, and her heart plummeted. There was no time. "We need to find a way to fight back, to break this curse. Come on." With a wrenching determination, she pulled Ethan along, sprinting across the yard toward the edge of the woods, a line dividing their home from the unknown. The weight of shadowy figures grew heavy at her back, urging her forward as much as they struck terror in her heart. As they reached the trees, the darkness deepened, thick and humid like a fog. With each step, the laughter grew faint but echoed in her mind, an eternal reminder of the danger. The safe haven of sunlight was slipping away. "Over there." Ethan pointed to a thin sliver of light, glimmering through the trees like a portal. With relentless urgency, they rushed toward it. The shadows twisted, nearly blocking their path. "Don't you dare leave." One of the voices hissed like venom, sharper than the chaos swirling in Sarah's mind. Just as they broke through into the illuminated clearing, a surge of wind caught them, casting leaves everywhere. The light didn't feel warm. Instead, a shiver crept along her spine, warning her that this sanctuary might not be safe either. Sarah's chest tightened as she noticed a figure standing in their path. A girl, not much older than Ethan, stood still as a statue. Her eyes, wide and vacant, reflected the very darkness they feared. "Help us," Ethan called to her, stepping closer without hesitation. "No." Sarah yanked him back, panic surging again. The girl's lips twisted upward into a grotesque smile. "You can't escape. Join us." A paralyzing dread flooded Sarah. The girl's head tilted unnaturally, cracking like a spine. The darkness pooled around her and surged forward, tendrils reaching with a predatory hunger. "Run! We have to run!" In that moment, survival took precedence over everything else, the want for freedom, for safety. They turned to flee, dashing through the trees with the shadows trailing behind them. But then, Sarah skidded to a halt, heart racing in confusion. Ethan stood frozen, staring at a worn gravestone half buried in the underbrush. "Mommy," it says, Chip. "No." The word tore from Sarah's lips, mingling with the pulse of terror that clawed at her throat. What truly happened to the children trapped in that house? Had they found a way to keep their spirits alive, or was this a twisted game of eternal punishment? With darkness encroaching behind them, Sarah's heart pounded louder than the laughter. She could feel the chains of the curse tightening once more. "What do we do, Mommy?" The shadows swarmed closer, and Sarah felt the grip of despair closing in. It was only the beginning. Ethan's eyes fixated on the gravestone, confusion mixing with fear. Sarah felt the urgency swelling inside her, a tempest demanding action. "Ethan, we can't stop." She tugged at him, but he remained rooted, despair in his gaze. "Mommy, it can't be him." Chip as his voice trailed off, uncertainty taking over. The shadows at their backs were drawing closer, taunting, relentless. "Listen to me." She gripped him tightly, her words a strained whisper. "We have to go, right now." But even as she said it, she felt the shadows clamoring behind them, their presence a suffocating weight. Suddenly, the wind shifted, howling through the trees. The laughter morphed into a chilling symphony. "You think you can escape? You belong to us." The haunting voices echoed through the clearing, reverberating against the trees. "Mommy!" Ethan whimpered, face pale as a ghost. His small fingers clung to Sarah's hand, knuckles turning white. "What if Chip is hurt?" "No, I won't let anything happen to you," she cried, a thread of desperation fraying her composure. She turned, attempting to pull him away from the grave. But he resisted, looking back as the tendrils of shadowed laughter wrapped around them. "Look!" Ethan gasped, pointing toward the names etched into the stone. "They have other names too, just like me." A jolt of disbelief crashed through her. Names writhed in her mind, each one belonged to a child from their neighborhood. Friends once giggling in their backyard. We need to run. Now. With every ounce of strength, she yanked Ethan away from the gravestone, forcing him toward the thicker tree cover. But as they moved, the shadows erupted from the underbrush, curling and twisting like a living nightmare. Enough games. A voice, deep and malevolent, resounded within the darkness. Come play with us. The ground trembled under their feet, roots snapping and twisting as if the earth itself was awakening. Sarah and Ethan dashed deeper into the forest, the shadows creeping behind them, hungry for the warmth of their lives. They stumbled, branches clawing at their clothes, hungry whispers curling around them like a shroud. With every step, Sarah felt the familiar weight of despair gnawing at her insides. "Mommy, I can't keep running." Ethan wheezed, his voice barely a whisper. She could see him slowing, his small legs quaking. Panic seized her. "No, no. We have to keep moving." She turned her head, looking back, praying for a sign, something to mark their way. But the shadows had shifted, becoming a dark wall, obscuring any chance of finding help. "Join us, Sarah," they hissed, the voices combining into one eerie chorus. "It's so much fun." Footsteps echoed behind them, an almost playful patter that chilled her to the bone. She felt a tug in her mind, a seductive call drawing her ever backward. "Mommy!" Ethan cried again. His grip was slipping, panic flaring brighter in his wide eyes. "No!" Sarah screamed, drawing him closer against her. "We can't. We want tea." In front of them, a dilapidated cabin revealed itself among the trees, its windows black like hollow eyes. Something flickered in the darkness, a chance for escape or a trap. There was no choice. They had to try something. Panic surged, and they dashed toward it, hearts hammered against bone, breaths blazing in the air. As they reached the rickety door, Sarah pushed it open with a frantic shove. The hinges wailed like the lost souls they were avoiding. Inside, the air was thick, stifling. Shadows lingered at the corners, a haunting silence interspersed with just the slightest echo of distant giggles. "Mommy, what if it's worse in here?" Ethan's voice trembled, every ounce of innocence stripped from it. "There's no choice. We can't go back." As they stepped inside, the door swung shut behind them with a thunderous bang. The whispers roared, "Welcome to the game," and in that moment, Sarah felt it the unmistakable certainty that the real horror had only just begun. In the dim light she could see something lurking behind an old, fraying curtain. What awaited them in the darkness? Was it salvation or the end? The cabin smelled of damp wood and something far worse, something ancient and decayed. Sarah squinted into the murky interior, the very air heavy with dread. "Ethan, stay close," she whispered, heart pounding in her chest. Even in that moment of terror, she felt the desperation to protect him warping her reality into something that felt almost surreal. They edged further inside, each step echoing ominously in the confined space. Dust motes danced in the beams of moonlight filtering in through the grimy window, but it was the darkness that hinted at unseen horrors. She could almost feel it crawling along her skin, a suffocating reminder of the shadows from outside. "Mommy, I hear them," Ethan murmured, almost inaudibly. He pulled at her shirt, eyes wide with fright. "They're not here," she insisted, burying her own fear deep down. "We're safe for now." But the whispers continued to curl around them, seeping into her mind, each one dripping with sinister delight. "Do you want to play?" The voice came from the shadows, dripping with a mock sweetness that sent chills racing down her spine. "No," she managed, her throat dry as she spun around, searching futilely for the source. "We don't want to play." But laughter erupted from different corners of the room, melodic yet haunting, pulling her thoughts down spirals of despair. Ethan clung tighter to her leg, trembling. "Mommy, stay behind me," she commanded, forcing herself to move forward despite the overwhelming darkness. Each creak of the floorboards felt like a countdown, a reminder of every second wasted. In the dim light, her gaze fell upon yet another object draped in shadow. An old rocking chair swayed gently, though there was no visible force behind it. The rhythmic creaking seemed to beckon to both of them, inviting them to join the dance of their doom. Suddenly, the whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of childlike voices, louder and more desperate. "Join us. Mommy, we're playing. It's fun. No. I want to let you take him," she screamed, driven by sheer will. Then, a sharp pounding sounded against the cabin's walls, rattling her bones. "No escape," the voices taunted. "You can't run from us. Run!" Sarah shouted, grabbing Ethan by the hand. They darted toward the back of the cabin, panic igniting new life in her limbs. But as they reached a door, it slammed shut just inches from them. The thud echoed through Sarah's chest, a grim reminder of their entrapment. The walls seemed to close in, the wooden planks warping into figures that lurked just beyond sight. Skeletons of the past. Memories never forgotten. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his small voice full of tears. "No. Look at me!" she shouted, kneeling beside him. "We're going to find a way out. I promise." But before she could gather her thoughts, the window beside them shattered violently, sending shards of glass twisting toward them like a flurry of blades. "Come play." The voices sang again, now sounding almost like a chorus of delight and despair. From the corner of her eye, she saw a shadow springing to life, tattering the curtain. Her breath caught. "What is that?" Panic surged through her as she realized what lurked beyond, but then it spoke, a low growl turning her blood to ice. "You can't leave without playing." The shadow simmered, swirling faster around the cabin, and Sarah felt herself staring straight into the abyss. Something lunged from the darkness, a figure that was both child and memory. She barely had time to react when icy fingers wrapped around her wrist, pulling her toward the waiting gloom. "Mommy!" Ethan cried, his voice lost beneath the rising chaos that threatened to consume them both, and just as they were about to be engulfed, a burst of blinding light erupted from the center of the room, illuminating the darkness and scattering the shadows into panicked whispers. What is this?" Sarah gasped, shielding her eyes as the figure retreated. The cabin felt alive, breathing and throbbing, and she couldn't shake the feeling that they were not just dealing with ghosts of the past but something more sinister altogether. "Mommy!" Ethan's voice trembled through the luminescent haze. "Where do we go now?" And then she turned, and with that turn, she caught a glimpse of what lay beyond the veil of light, the eyes watching them, glowing with anticipation, readying themselves for the next game. Was the light their salvation or just the beginning of a new horror? The light flickered, casting erratic shadows that seemed to dance along the walls. Sarah squinted, trying to make sense of the chaotic array of forms sweeping through the cabin. Ethan clung tightly to her, his small fingers digging into her skin like tiny claws. "Mommy, I want to go home," he whimpered, his face ghostly pale. The desperation in his voice stirred something primal in Sarah. She couldn't let her son see her fear. "Just a little longer," she whispered, forcing the calm that her heart couldn't follow. They had to find a way out. As she scanned the room for an escape, the light began to pulsate, rhythmically like a heartbeat. A voice emerged from it, gentle yet unsettling, "Play with us, Mommy and Ethan." "Stop it!" she shouted, rage surging through her veins, defiance mingling with terror. She stepped forward, but the light flickered brighter, forcing her to shield her eyes. When she could finally open them again, the cabin had shifted. The rocking chair was now directly in front of her, but it was empty. She instinctively felt behind her, standing protectively in front of Ethan, who was clearly bewildered. "Don't let them take me, please." An echoing laugh reverberated through the walls, suffocating her. "They can't take you, but they can play." With each repetition, the cabin seemed to expand and contract, twisting like a breathing organism. Ethan curled up against her leg, trembling. She knelt beside him, scooping him into her arms. "Hold on tight." Gripping him fiercely, Sarah dashed toward the door at the back of the cabin, hoping the small window she had seen earlier might lead to freedom. But the door, once a mere obstacle, was now a towering wall adorned with gnarled figures etched into the wood. They twisted and writhed, their faces contorted in silent screams, begging her to stop. "I don't want to play," she yelled, the panic squeezing her throat. In response, the cabin groaned, threads of darkness snaking out from the corners like predators' claws, inching closer, eager to grasp them. A blinding flash burst from somewhere within the walls, illuminating the horrifying silhouettes of children. Their eyes shone brightly, dead and hollow, void of life yet vibrant with malicious glee. "Join us! Join the game!" They sang in unison, their voices a chorus of innocence twisted by torment. "Stay back!" Sarah screamed, clutching Ethan even tighter. His small frame trembled as the walls pressed in closer, squeezing the air from her lungs. Suddenly, the figure that had lurked in the shadows stepped into the light. The image took form, an elongated, childlike figure with dark eyes and an uncanny smile that stretched too wide. It was beautiful and grotesque all at once, its hair floating as if underwater. "Play with us, Sarah," the figure whispered, its voice wrapping around her like a shroud. "No!" she shouted, and just then, the floorboards beneath her shuddered violently, nearly bringing her to her knees. The light began to dwindle, and the shadows clawed back, consuming the remaining glow. "You can't leave!" The voices wailed, echoing and merging in agony. In that moment of desperation, realization hit her like a spear through the heart. "We have to play!" she shouted, breaking through the cacophony. "But not on your terms." Her trembling fingers fumbled over the door as she felt the darkness drawing nearer. She could sense it, the thick dread clawing towards her like a wave about to crash. She had to take control. Whatever game this was, she needed to rewrite the rules. Drawing a deep breath, Sarah stood tall and faced the shadow-clad room. "We'll play, but you're going to listen to me." The air stilled. Silence fell, thick and unsettling. Ethan looked up at her, wide-eyed and breathless. "What will they do now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. As if answering his question, the door creaked open slightly, revealing an endless hallway cloaked in darkness. "Go," a chilling echo whispered back, gliding through the atmosphere like a phantom breath. "Stay close, Ethan, whatever happens next, stick with me," Sarah said, tightening her grip. Around him once more, fear mingling with the spark of hope she refused to let die. Together, they stepped into the gaping shadows ahead, ready to confront whatever lay beyond, but also aware that the true game had just begun. What awaited them at the end of the darkness? Would they emerge changed, or would they be lost forever? As Sarah stepped into the hallway, darkness wrapped around them like a heavy quilt, each step echoing in the silence. She felt Ethan's small hand trembling in hers, yet her spirit surged with an unfamiliar strength. "We can do this," she reassured him, though doubt curled in her stomach. The hallway stretched out endlessly, an inviting abyss. Shadows flickered along the walls, whimsical patterns of light and dark, playing tricks on her mind. Whispers crawled out from the corners, begging her to stop, to turn back. "You'll never find the end. Join us. Play." "Mommy, I don't want to play anymore." Ethan's voice quivered, piercing the suffocating silence. She squeezed his hand tighter. "Just a little further," she urged, steeliness building in her voice. Each step felt like they were racing against time, pushed by unseen forces, yet she held on to the flicker of hope that they might find a way out. Then, they reached an opening. The room's pulse resonated with deep vibrations that hummed through the walls. It was a vast circular chamber, bathed in a dim glow. A mosaic of colors danced across the floor, yet the sight filled Sarah with dread. In the center stood a strange table, arrayed with familiar toys, each one belonging to the children of Maplewood, twisted into grotesque versions of themselves. Trapping innocence in a horrifying display. "Those are my friends," Ethan whispered, eyes wide with horror. Are they alive?" "No, sweetheart." Panic clawed at her throat. "They're not them anymore. We have to turn away." But something tugged her deeper into the room, as if the twisted remnants of joy pulled her forward. It was a sickening reminder of everything that had been taken. Suddenly, the shadows around the room began to dance, morphing into childlike figures, each face coming alive with malevolence. "Welcome," they sang, voices rising in a haunting melody. "Welcome to the game." "Sarah," a familiar voice echoed. It was Chip, yet not the Chip she remembered. His figure floated to the front, the boy she once knew, now a hollow shell, eyes filled with darkness. "Play with us. Stay forever." She felt a surge of anger. "No. You don't get to take him or anyone else. This ends now." The words escaped her throat like a battle cry, fueled by every mother's instinct to protect her child. That in response, the room trembled, shadows writhing as they focused their intentions on her. "You think you can refuse? You think this is over? This isn't your game?" she yelled. "You don't get to control us." With a flick of her wrist, she swept her hand across the room, imagining the light within her breaking through the darkness. A warm, bright glow shot forth, illuminating the children's figures and forcing them back. "I am not afraid of you." Ethan yanked on her sleeve, eyes wide. "Mommy, what are you doing? Trust me," she shouted. "Remember who you are." She strained against the darkness, channeling all her love and strength toward the bright pulse that flooded the chamber. To her surprise, Ethan stepped beside her, shaking off his fear. "I believe in us." His small voice rang out, and the shadows recoiled as they were filled with light and warmth. The figures screeched, their dark forms trying to shield themselves from the brilliance that enveloped Sarah and Ethan. "The light. No. You can't escape." But Sarah felt the truth wash over her like a wave. "We're not playing games. We're taking back what's ours." The room echoed with a sudden surge of power as their combined energy pulsed brighter, washing out the sinister whispers and laughter that trailed behind them. The shadows writhed in agony, shrieking as they shattered before their eyes, fading into nothingness. With each flicker, the air felt cleaner, lighter, and with that, every fragment of fear vanished, leaving only freedom and release. At last, with a deep breath, Sarah grasped Ethan's hand firmly. "We need to go," she urged, looking around at the remnants of darkness dissipating into thin air. They turned, racing back through the hallway, their hearts lightened by the victory they had fought for together. Finally, they reached the cabin door, and with a single thrust, Sarah pushed it open. Bright sunlight spilled into the room, illuminating their faces and casting out the last echoes of fear. They stumbled out into the welcome warmth of freedom, the familiar sounds of their neighborhood embracing them like a long-lost friend. Laughter floated in the air again, as the scent of sunshine replaced the stillness of dread. And as she held Ethan tight, the reality sank in. This chapter was over. "Mommy, is it really gone?" he asked, voice trembling with uncertainty. "It is," she replied, feeling the weight lift off her chest. "We're free." That very moment, they turned back, watching the cabin fade into the distance, knowing they had broken the curse together. With tears of relief shining in her eyes, Sarah whispered, "There's always hope, Ethan. Always." And hand in hand, they walked towards the sun, embracing a future that shone brightly before them, leaving behind shadows of the past. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on mind-bending stories like this. Smash the like button for support. Seriously, it helps me reach more awesome folks like you. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. And for the love of all things spooky, instantly share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. Real fans know it matters.